Hey everyone, welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. We have a notable guest on today. She's an American designer, widely recognized as one of the first designers to embrace computer technology as a design tool. She is also credited with helping to import the European New Wave design style to the US during the late 70s and early 80s. According to design historian Stephen Heller, she was a bridge between the modern and the postmodern, the analog and the digital. Please join me in welcoming April Greiman. Welcome.
Thank you.
Are you ready for 20 questions?
Yeah, more or less. And it's funny thinking about myself as a bridge. I'm getting a visual on that. Me as a bridge.
Awesome. Okay, question one. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
What I do is a little of everything. I'm a full-time educator at USC Roski School of Art and Design. I am focusing a lot on my fine art photography, so I'm focused a lot on making big prints here in our studio. And I'm also doing one or two projects in design annually. Yeah, so that's kind of what I do. I also garden and I also like to cook.
Awesome. Question two. What's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
Um, Different than what?
Um,
Different than others or different than what?
yeah, I suppose different than others.
I guess that I'm somebody that never really was clear on what I wanted to do, except I was pretty sure I didn't want to be a graphic designer.
Great. Question three is why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
Because I have a insatiable drive and interest in learning things and pursuing things that I really know nothing about and can explore kind of in the way that I explore.
Great. And some people struggle with four, but the question is, what does your future look like?
I hope it looks as bright as it is now. I feel like I pretty much have I'm kind of living the dream. Not that I don't have complaints, not that my body is not revealing its age. And so I guess, I just hope my future is healthy and continues to allow me to be creative pretty much every day.
Great. And five, we say, is unique to this show. The question is, let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
Place really became everything for me in the late 70s when I arrived from New York to Los Angeles. I never expected to live in Los Angeles. And in fact, when I left New York to come out to work on a project, I just told my parents and maybe one or two other people because I never expected to really stay in Los Angeles. And then I discovered really the light and the kind of space that we get to inhabit here. I was just completely overwhelmed in going to Death Valley and never having been in a desert before. And so for me, this place is desert and light and kind of open space.
Great. Six is, if you had to start from the beginning, what advice would you give your former younger self?
Uh, Boy, how many hours do we have? Um, I don't know. I'm not somebody that tries to hang on too much with regret and tries not to dwell too much on the past. So I I think I could have been a more overt feminist. I don't know if that's advice, but I kind of shied away from getting very involved, and a lot because the environment and the particular environment here, I felt I didn't fit in. And I, so yeah, I feel like I could have uh, put a little bit more energy into that, and really kind of thinking more about what it was at that time in the late 70s. But I kind of shied away, and I think I would advise myself to be a little bit more forthcoming and a little bit more assertive in that regard. Even so, I think I did a pretty good job trying to make sure my voice was heard, and to, kind of forge ahead in a man's world.
Nice. And
That's not a very good answer. I think it's all over, but I mean, I guess in a way it is a regret. Yeah, I think I just advised myself in certain regards to be a little bit more focused on other than, design and photography, because I really kind of tunneled in. Uh, yeah. So you were going to say something, Thomas?
no, I was entering the next question, but that's okay. Okay, so 7 is, what's a day in your life like?
Ah, day in my life. So I'm a night person. So I stay up pretty late. And so the day is starts with kind of like, damn, it's morning. It's the sun's out, I wake up, I do my 10 minutes of Pilates and yoga stretching. I sometimes do a little bit of arm weights. I tend to read my email. Actually, sometimes I wake up really early, even though I go to bed at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I wake up early and sunrise, and then I do read my email. I always read my email, most of it. And any messages that have come in, then I do my little stretches, then I reluctantly get up. Sometimes I get up and then I decide I have to go back to bed because I'm not ready. So I would say I start really moving around 10 in the morning, which is, yeah. And then I'm trying to currently, and since my New Year's resolve is to get something in my stomach in the morning, I really can't really eat much. My system doesn't like food in the morning, nor does it like coffee in the morning. So, but lately I've been drinking a kind of a mushroom matcha drink. It's kind of disgusting sounding, but it's pretty color. And then I slowly get ready. I go out to my garden. I see how my plants are doing, if they need water. I watch the news, usually for about a half hour or so. I then proceed out towards my studio. I always drink a black iced tea in the morning, and that's my first caffeine. And then I come in the studio, and then our hours are like 12:30 till about 7, and we don't take a lunch break, so we just work that continuous time. I just got a nice coffee delivered to me right now. A cappuccino is staring me in the face. I only have coffee in the afternoon. And then what do I do then? Then the evening's kind of tricky. My husband, Michael, is an architect, and we both have our own studios and, time schedules. So we touch base and see if we're going home and try to pick up something at the market to cook, or if we're just going to stop and get something to eat. And we do a little of both, and then, yeah, go home, eat something or having eaten something, then pretty boring life, huh? So um, during the day, always music in the studio. I can't work without music. It makes me crazy if there's no music of all kinds. But anyway, the evening, um, my eyes have gotten pretty bad. I have to say, having probably dealt for too long with a screen that radiated in the mid late 80s before Apple got their act together to give you an anti-radiation screen. So I can read in the morning and I read during the day, but at night I'm finding my eyes just cannot take it anymore. So it's really kind of depressing. And then, so I watch TV. My husband thinks I watch way too much TV, but I find him kind of standing behind my chair watching TV. And I watch movies, news, and some special season programs, lots of those, which probably we all got brainwashed into doing during COVID, when everybody was like binging everything, right? And then my husband goes to bed way earlier, and then I proceed to watch a couple more episodes of something, or I might just catch a late night movie. And then, yeah, I drink water along the way, try to get 8 glasses of water. And now, yeah, I've given way too much information about my boring life.
That's great. 8 is lifelong learning is a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
Well, I don't know if I'm ever up to date. I found that out buying my first computer, if it's state of the art, it's clearly not working, but so it's really hard to keep up to date. I really feel like teaching has been one of the greatest benefits for my being an eternal student. I have to say that I taught on and off, mostly on, for about 25 years in architecture schools. And I learned so much in so many ways. And it really enhanced my ways of thinking about learning and continuing learning, including, doing more research and thinking more about what I think about. But I have taught, in the early 80s, I was director of California Institute of the Arts design program. Then I jumped out the door for about 6 years, and then I joined faculty at Southern California Institute of Architecture. I taught there on and off for 20 years, mostly on. Then I taught for about 8 years at Woodbury University School of Architecture. Then I took 1 year off, and now I'm tenured at USC Roski School. And boy, have things changed, like from, late 70s teaching at CalArts, and then becoming director, where I tried to introduce Macintosh. But for example, when I was head of design program at CalArts, I was getting pretty bashed by the elder male population in New York for not being a designer and being a fine artist. And sadly, I took some of that to heart and was very discouraged. And so I, for example, got a TA that was in the film video school to work with me in overnight sessions. And there I learned how to not only shoot professional video equipment, but I learned to kind of use an analog computer and a synthesizer. And so that's a great example of, kind of ongoing learning. So I got the bug for technology that, helped me jump into using electronic paint boxes for some years, and some shooting professional video, some TV spots for companies. Then the Macintosh came out, and I jumped to a different paint box, and, so yeah. So I think I've always just loved being a student and learning things. And so, kind of learning how to learn is really something I could attribute to being in architecture school. So I think that that's been a really big boon to my overall creative complexion. And but I teach now, and it's, you know, like, it's so rare that students, and I teach it in the grad design program at Roski, and it's so rare that people want to do a website. I mean, it's just like website, that's so last millennium already, and everybody already had a website when they were in grade school. So just learning about like the platforms they use, and kind of the lingo, that in itself is pretty interesting to me, having been somebody always interested in words, therefore typography, words as image, you know, image as text, so et cetera, et cetera.
Great. And 9 is about tools. Can you talk about the digital and the analog?
The tools, which ones? I mean, currently, no, I'm using the same tools. I still shoot video. I still, pretty much married to my Apple equipment. Use my phone exclusively for shooting photos and videos, but I have for a million years, it seems like now. I've ventured into, for about 5 years now, I've been working with a colleague, collaborator, and genius, Dale Herigstad in the UK, on augmenting, doing some AR work with a couple of my printed pieces of graphics. Although I don't consider Design Quarterly, does it make sense, a graphic design? It's a video computer graphic printed offset lithography, but we're augmenting that. And that's a lot of fun learning about AR. And I'm also working here in the studio with a really great assistant, Yushen, who is, we're using AI in my photography, and we are sourcing our own material. So I don't know how many hundreds of my images he uploaded to, I don't even know what program we're using. We've used Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, something Firefly, et cetera, et cetera. We're using them all. I think he may be inventing his own as we speak, but so we're using my own resource materials and then kind of building new images with, the AI version of it into maybe a landscape or something else that is one of the themes running through my photography. And so, yeah, I think we have a big commercial printer, a big Canon printer. I think it's like 46 inches wide. So what is that, like 1.5 meters? It's a big machine. We keep that running every day. So it's really, really a luxury and a great delight to print my own photography. I always print large scale images here. And so that pretty much wraps up. I have an electric car. It's kind of a tool. What kind of car do you have?
I don't drive, actually.
I knew you were going to say that. I can tell from your photos. Okay.
Go to number 10 here. Work-life balance, life-work balance. Can you talk about that?
Work is life. I mean, there's no delineation there. I feel like that's another blessing that my life just allows me to flow pretty creatively. And luckily I have a husband who, we're on the same kind of flow path of just, not seeing what I do every day as work, but more kind of who I am.
Great. And if you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing?
I'd probably be in jail. No, I don't, what I'd be doing. For a while, I worked on a big project with Ken Smith, landscape architect, and I worked a few times on projects that had involved a landscape architect, and I always, since I've had, for me, maybe not so much published, but a pretty rich, creative and fine art career, or, kind of pursuit, journey. And I've really always liked plants and landscape, and I probably would have considered going to a school where I studied landscape architecture. I also have a big body of work in the built environment where I get hired to work as a color consultant for materials, palettes, and then, from that, it ends up being three-dimensional things, or a signage package, or a brand of a building, and I'm always like, since I've really liked changing scale, and I'm like a material, freak. I love textiles and different materials, including plants and whatever, that I think that might have been a pretty satisfying thing for me. Not that I think of landscape architecture as being an extension of gardening, but I think to combine kind of bigger ideas that include plants and the actual material landscape, I think that would have been a really good thing for me. Challenging and yeah. But other than that, since I never really knew what I wanted to do, and very often still don't, except what's in front of me right now, I think that can't think of anything else. As a kid, I wanted to be a nurse, and then every time I'd see blood, like if my mother cut her finger in the kitchen, I would faint. So my mother suggested that I not be a nurse. That could be a problem. But I've really always kind of liked everything and tried everything. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a very long, kind of circuitous answer, but I did my best.
Great. And you kind of just answered this, but what would you not like to do with your career?
With my career, I mean, I don't know. I've also been really blessed to have so many great clients, and I've, most of my projects in design have been small and medium-sized companies or projects or entrepreneurs, and I've always just been so lucky that I didn't have to market myself, and that I just got always a nice flow of work with kind of independent thinkers. And um, so maybe the few times I've worked with bigger companies, like Fortune 500 companies, they were pretty unsatisfying. I never really had, maybe one project where I did, they accepted a tiny firm to work on their project, but for the most part, I was brought in like to think tanks. Remember the days of think tanks? That doesn't even exist anymore, that expression probably, but um, uh, and somehow those ended up being pretty unsatisfactory to me creatively, and also in terms of, output. Too much that during, well, we would, let's say in the 80s and 90s, when I would be involved with some companies, then I always felt like what came out of that, they loved to pick my brain and get me in meetings, and then what would come out of that would be too homogenized. And I felt like in a way, yeah, I would never want to do that anymore.
Great. And how about a favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Oh boy.
Sorry?
I said, oh boy, but that's not exactly that's one of my favorite things to say, oh boy. I would say, think about what you think about.
Great. And a least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Um, No.
If you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what word would it be?
Pass.
You talked a bit about this, but what keeps you up at night?
Definitely politics currently. It's absolutely terrifying to me what's going on. It has required me to do extra breathing exercises and, play with singing bells. Yeah, I feel really sad, and really torn about, I feel sad about what's going on in the world. And I feel really torn, not knowing if, I mean, not only politics, but the environment, all of the above that we all are all talking about. And I, it's not that I feel guilty, but I stress over a little bit over, where did my generation, where did we participate in this? Because it's, it just keeps evolving and, it's, but on the other hand, I just know I have a brother he's retired, but he's a meteorologist, and I'm very aware of how many ice ages and how many global warmings we've had, over the, X billion of years that we've been a little, sphere. And so that helps me feel like, I can only do what I can do and try to, remain conscious about that and contribute in a way that's a positive. My intent is positive. Again, like the overall effect, I don't know over, a few decades, and that's what I'm referring to as far as keeping me up at night, like where did my generation go astray, with the environment and various things, so. But anyway, I don't know. I think I've said enough about that. I'm starting to feel bad.
Good. And 17, do you have a dream you're chasing?
No,
What inspires you?
everything, really everything. I mean, for sure, music and art, but I'm landscape, light, color.
How about advice you'd like to share?
That's the one thing I don't do.
Okay. And 20, how about
I guess one could say, expect change.
Great. And 20, how can our listeners keep tabs on you, and what's our call to action?
AprilGreiman.com would be more of my fine art work, photography, public art. And my last name is Greiman, so AprilGreiman.com. And then my design consultancy is madeinspace.la, no .com. And I'm at, April Greiman on Insta. And yeah, you could try to get me to follow you back on Facebook, maybe, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's enough. I'm in downtown Los Angeles, right on Broadway between the Apple Store and the Orpheum. And it's another way, if you can figure out what floor I'm on and what building, then just come up and knock on the door.
Great. Well, thanks so much.
But not in the morning, because we're
Right.
not here. Is that
Thanks
good?
so much. Such a privilege to have you on today.
Thank you. And thank you so much for your patience with me, Thomas. I know you probably thought I was an idiot because I changed and rescheduled so many times, but honestly, sincerely, I wanted to do this. It's just, I've had a heck of a last year, so a lot of craziness.
Thank you so much.
All right.